Do you shoot RAW or do you shoot straight out of the camera? It's a somewhat divisive argument in photography, and none more so than in the Fuji ecosphere. Because Fuji has these fabled film simulations, a lot of people prefer to shoot straight out of the camera. But today, I want to talk about why this argument is completely pointless. So even if you don't own a Fuji, you will have heard about the film recipes and the film color profiles that these have. You can actually change the film profiles to suit your own style, or you can use the built-in ones that simulate things like Velvia and Acros. This is an old Fuji, it's an XE3, and it only has about 4 or 5 film simulations. But there's always an argument online about shooting with a film simulation and a color profile in JPEG or shooting RAW. To be quite honest, the argument is completely pointless. It doesn't need to be like that. Any modern camera will shoot JPEG and RAW, and it will shoot them simultaneously together. So you can get the high quality RAW file and the baked in JPEG file on the same card at the same time. But it goes deeper than that. If you take your images into any modern editing suite, you can apply the film profile to them in that editing suite. Today, I'm in beautiful Durham. I haven't been here for a little while, and we're just going to have a little walk around the town with this camera. It's set up to shoot JPEG and RAW simultaneously. We'll go around, we'll shoot some colourful subjects. We've got a lovely colourful flowers behind me in reds and greens, and we'll shoot some high contrast subjects, and then we'll take them back into Lightroom. So we'll have a look at a RAW file with a colour profile applied and compare it against similar JPEG files with baked-in color profiles or baked-in film profiles. So I'm going to have a little wander around this very, very pretty little city of Durham with the XE3. We'll take a few pictures and then we'll head back to the studio and have a look at them in Lightroom. So to get the ball rolling, we're going to have a little wander around the market square. We've got lots of colours and lots of yellow stone buildings. It'll make a good environment for testing the colour rendition of the baked-in profile with the Adobe or the Fujifilm profile applied in Lightroom. So let's get a few pictures down here. And for these shots, we're going to use the Velvia film profile baked into the JPEG, and obviously nothing on the RAW. I'm now trying a little bit of Acros, the black and white, or one of the black and white film profiles. So we'll give that a little go as well and see what we can get. So as I'm walking around, I'm just playing with the various film modes, film simulations on the Fuji, cycling and bracketing through lots of different versions of it. As well as looking for colour, I'm also trying to find high contrast scenes. That'll really show us the difference between shooting a JPEG and being able to recover a lot of the highlight detail in a RAW file. Now I am shooting in manual mode, I am putting the exposure pretty much as the meter suggests and working from that. So pretty much every shot should be correctly metered exposure. Doesn't mean to say it's the most suitable exposure, but it's the metered exposure. And we will, when we get back to the studio, we'll have a look at the differences between the RAW and the JPEG and see how much more we can recover in the RAW. One other thing you can do, of course, with Fuji cameras is bracket the film simulations. I'm not sure about more modern cameras. I think you can only bracket 2 or 3 different film profiles on this particular model. So we'll give that a little go. I have pre-set up some of the film profiles, so we'll try the bracket and see what that comes out like. So I've done a fair few different varieties of shots this morning, some with bracketed film simulations, some cycling through the film simulations, and just some general shots, black and white colour, lots of different situations, bright light, dull colours, all the sort of spectrum that you might expect to shoot with a Fuji camera. I'm going to head back to the studio, have a cup of coffee, and then we'll have a look at these in Lightroom together and decide just whether this straight out of camera RAW argument is completely overblown.
So welcome back to the studio. I've dropped a few of the images from the shoot into Lightroom and we're just going to have a look at them. We're not going to heavily edit them or explain the huge differences between straight out of camera and RAW, because that's not really what I want to talk about. I just want to talk about how the argument is actually kind of irrelevant. So let's get into Lightroom. So here we are with the images in Lightroom, and as you can see, I've actually color coded them. The red images are the JPEGs straight out of camera, and the green images are the RAW files. And what we're going to do is we're just going to have a look at some of the key aspects and differences between straight out of the camera JPEGs and the RAW files. And we're going to start with this one here. As you can see, it's got a lot of red in it and it's a little bit overexposed, particularly in the background. Now, this is the JPEG version. And if we come over to the develop module, you'll see that, yes, what we can do is go to the mixer and try and reduce these reds a little bit. So if we bring those down to, let's say, around about -20, we've reduced the saturation of those reds. Now, this image was shot in Velvia, but as a JPEG, it doesn't show you the particular color styles. You just get color monochrome and you can browse the default Adobe color profiles. But of course, you're applying those to a already baked in color profile. So you don't really want to be doing that sort of stuff. Now, let's just reset that color. If I come to the JPEG version, you can see it's absolutely identical. And the only way you can tell the difference, if I come up here, you can see in the RAW version, it says Camera Velvia Vivid. That's exactly the same color profile that I shot it on in the camera. And this is the first point. When you shoot straight out of camera, yes, you bake in that profile. However, if you're using editing software such as Lightroom, you can actually apply that particular color profile, that particular film profile. In fact, Lightroom does it automatically. I can change that by cycling through all the Adobe stand ones. And if I go to browse, you'll see that I have all the Fuji ones. Acros, Acros green, Acros red, Acros yellow. Every Fuji profile that my camera has is in Lightroom. And I believe it's much the same for other high-end editing software as well. So that's the first point. Let's just put that back onto Velvia. If we were to work on the highlights, you will see somewhat of a difference. Now, if I bring the highlights of this image, you can see it's pretty blown out in the background there. And I bring that down to, let's say, -40. Let's go a little bit more. Let's go -70, around about -70. It has brought the highlights down, but you can see there is some serious clipping going on there. You can see that it hasn't brought back the definition in those really bright highlights there. Now, if I come back to the RAW file and we apply the same highlight slider down to around about -70, there's a significant difference. I still have definition in those highlights area. I've pulled it back. If we scoot back to the JPEG and the RAW file, you can see I do have extra dynamic range, extra definition in it. Another example here is these two images. They're pretty much identical. Again, this is the JPEG, this is the RAW. There's hardly any difference between them. And for straight out of camera photography, this works really, really well. The image looks good. The only thing you might say is the highlights are a bit blown out of there. And again, I can pull those down a little bit in the RAW file like this, and you can see I've got a little bit blue into the sky. Compared to the JPEG, if I do it with the JPEG, that sky doesn't come in. So there is no doubt in these two shots that I've got more control over the image, significantly more control over the image compared to that of the JPEG. But both of those JPEG images are really nice images on their own. They stand alone perfectly well together if you don't want to edit. So we'll come to another little example here. Again, this is the JPEG, this is the RAW. And what we're going to do is try and manipulate this a little bit more, bring the shadows up and bring the highlights down. This one was shot in Acros yellow. So if we come to the original JPEG, you'll see up here it just says color, which of course it's not. But we'll bring the highlights down to see what we can do. Let's bring those down to -60. And we'll bring the shadows up to, let's say, around +50, so -60 +50. And we have brought some extra detail into the image, particularly in the shadows. It's worked quite well. It has introduced a fair bit of noise into the shadow areas, but we could clean that up later if we wanted to. Let's do the same with the RAW file now. So we'll come down to -60 on the highlights and +50 on the shadows. There we go. And instantly you can see, particularly in the highlight areas, we've got more definition in the sky. When we started, both images were absolutely identical, the straight out of camera and the RAW. But now with a little bit of editing, you can see that the shadows haven't pulled up quite as much, but looking at them, they're a lot less noisy than those in the JPEG file. And as for the highlight areas, you can see quite clearly that in the JPEG we managed to pull back a little bit, but in the RAW file we've got quite a lot. So this is the last image, and I just want to show you how close they are. This is the straight out of the camera JPEG. This is the RAW file. This was shot in camera Velvia again, vivid Velvia mode. And again, if I just come down to the browse module here, I've got all of the color profiles that I want. So if we put that back on Velvia Vivid, like that, and I'm not really going to do anything with this image. It's just a final demonstration of the fact that you do have all of those Fujifilm profiles that my XE3 has baked into it. You have them in Lightroom, and I suspect you have them in other high-end editing software as well. So I hope you've enjoyed looking at those images. The key premise of this video is to talk about the fact that the straight out of camera stroke RAW argument is just pointless. Now, I've tried to demonstrate that by using Fujifilm cameras, who are perhaps one of the pioneers and triggerers of this, what I believe is a useless argument. You can see that the straight out of camera images were fantastic. They were really, really nice. There was lots of color in them, lots of detail, plenty of definition, and they look great. So really, there's 2 points that I want to make from this video. Firstly, that yes, straight out of camera looks absolutely fantastic and you can get some really, really good images. Meanwhile, you can edit RAW files to pull back highlights, bring up shadows, and just get a general better look to your image if you want to. The second point is, all cameras these days shoot RAW and JPEG together. There's absolutely no need to restrict yourself to just the straight out of camera JPEG, unless, for example, you're shooting wildlife or sports and you need to get a lot of shots rattled off quickly and you don't want to particularly edit. However, for general photography, and we're not just talking about Fuji here, we're talking about all cameras. For general photography, you can shoot both JPEG and RAW. If you're happy with all the JPEGs, bin the RAWs. It's just such a pointless argument, and it's one that seems to go on places like Threads and Twitter and Facebook endlessly. The straight out of camera crowd telling people that they get it right in the camera, as if RAW photographers don't get it right in the camera. Many of us do. And then, you know, the somewhat pretentious attitude of RAW shooters, I can edit, pull back 5 stops of dynamic range, etc., etc. It's a pointless argument. The fact is that shoot what you want to shoot. If you're a straight out of camera JPEG shooter that's a little unsure about the light or the color, shoot both JPEG and RAW, and then if the RAW looks great, bin the JPEG. There's just no need to be arguing about this. So let me know your thoughts. Do you think this is such a pointless argument? And let's be honest, there are a lot of pointless arguments in photography, and it's nothing new. It happened well before the age of the internet. Even at camera clubs that I used to go to in the 80s, people would argue about Nikon and Canon and 2.8 and 4, Velvia and Kodachrome. It was an endless argument, and some of those were just sort of regular banter, and some of them were sort of quite vitriolic arguments and really quite pointless, if I'm honest. So let me know in the comments, what are your thoughts on the straight out of camera RAW debate? Is it pointless, or do you feel that shooting straight out of camera really concentrates your mind, or perhaps you're in the camp that RAW gives you that post-production creativity to mold the image to the way you envisioned it when you press the shutter? If you've liked this video, a thumbs up would be fantastic. A subscription would be even better. And if you really like the video, a hype would be fantastic. Hype is the new thing on YouTube that allows viewers to really elevate a video that they really like. Now, obviously, there's no pressure on you to do that. If you don't feel this video is worth it, obviously don't do it. But do consider a like and a subscription. Anyway, that's enough for today. I've got a trip coming to the more northwestern region of Germany. I'm starting off in Dusseldorf and possibly visiting a couple of other cities. That starts on September the 4th. I will be producing some videos from that. I might vlog the trip as well, but we'll see how that goes. So I look forward to bringing you some images from northwest Germany. It's a trip I'm really looking forward to. I love Germany, and I love sort of just traveling around Germany. It's such a great country. In the next video, I'll be looking at the gear that I'm going to be taking, and I'm still very undecided. It's going to be a photography trip predominantly, with a little bit of video added in, video stock. But I want to do perhaps my first full photography trip in a long time. Most of my trips these days are to shoot stock videos, so it's going to be an interesting tip. I'm going to take Fuji, I'm going to take Sony, but beyond that I haven't decided on lenses and tripods. I might not even take a tripod this time. That's for the next video. I will explain all of that in the next video, and we'll have a look at what I'm going to take. But until then, I'm off to get a cup of coffee, and I'll see you in the next one.